help me and welcome Stuart here, because our speaker will be talking about his toy soldier collecting experiences, and so I want you to give him a welcome.
Thanks, Sandy.
I'm Stuart Hessney. I'm sorry to disappoint everybody, but I'm a Capricorn, and my horoscope this morning said avoid oversharing. So I'm going to go back and sit next to my wife Sally there.
Thanks for going.
First of all, I'd just like to thank the Society for inviting me to be here today. I have been a member for neighborhood of 20 years. I've been to the annual show in June many times, but being here today fulfills the goal of going to a regular monthly meeting for me. That was important to me, so tick that off the list. I really want to thank Scott for helping me with my photos today. Between the two of us, hopefully we won't mess things up too much. So what I wanted to talk about is something that's, there's a lot of things I could talk, I talked to them, I've been fortunate enough to meet so many different makers for the years sometimes it's a business relationship, but I become friends with them, and guys like this, these are my heroes, the people that dream up this stuff and make the stuff. So
You can't read your
I
notes
can't
now.
read now. Wait, I'll get my phone.
Okay.
So I am a lifelong toy soldier collector. My mom had said I'm the oldest of 6 kids, so of course I was the favorite. And she pushed me in my stroller around 5 and dime stores like Woolworths and Fishman's and places like that, and she'd get to the checkout line, and she'd look down, and invariably I'd grab something off the lower shelves, and I wouldn't let go. She had to buy something to get me out of the store. So I like to think they must have been toy soldiers. I think that's where that started. And my first ones were tiny plastic figures made in Hong Kong by a company that was very ironically called Giant. I don't know if anybody remembers those, but kind of about HO scale. And they made everything from ancient Greeks to Romans to Vikings with launch ships, knights in shining armor, Napoleonics, Union and Confederate foes in the American Civil War, World War II combatants, and more. And actually, it wasn't until I was an adult and you learn more and more about the hobby as it goes along. I found out that Giant was actually ripping off makers like Britain's and Marx. They were using a pantograph copying machine to take these 60 millimeter, 54 millimeter figures and make copies of them in Hong Kong. So that scale was, when I was a child, again, the oldest of 6, my allowance was 25 cents every 2 weeks. Not a lot of space. I was a 172 scale collector. The old Britons, like Henry and other people we're sending today, were still in stores. But I would look at those and I loved them, I admired them, but $2 for 7 figures when I can get 50 for 50 cents, which way are you gonna go? So the reason this picture's up is these are more recent ones, but the box art was so fantastic. And I would stack these boxes up in my bedroom closet and draw for them from like it was a library. Okay, what vandal am I gonna do? My mom used to enforce, again, 6 kids. Even in the summer, she would enforce quiet time. We had to, all the other kids in the neighborhood are outside playing in the street, and we have to have quiet time. So I do battles in my bed. So I don't think I was conscious of it as a kid, but I think my interest in toy soldiers drove my interest in history through my life as an adult. You know, like everybody goes through this, you know, my life ebbed and flowed with rites of passage, such as going to college, getting married for the first time, becoming a father, and pursuing my career in journalism. But I never stopped collecting. I was always buying stuff and maybe stash it away. Even as an adult, sometimes I had the makings of a 172 scale Napoleonic barrel set up on top of my dresser. You know, and you see something in a story, Polish Lancers, I'm gonna need those for later, you know, so you keep buying stuff. So one day, having said all that, a very pivotal moment happened in the early 90s at our local library. We live in Glens Falls, New York. It's the southern Adirondacks, kind of in between Saratoga and Lake George. A lot of people know where those places are. So I was at the local library and I'm going through all the history bookshelves, you know, what's interesting, what's new. And purely by chance, I stumbled on this 1981 book because it was shelved in the wrong section of the library. It was authored by a British guy named Peter Johnson, who together with his wife Anne, I think they had a stall on Portobello Row in London, and this led to them becoming the curators of Malcolm Forbes' collection. And actually, Anne was more the expert than Peter. But the thing is, Malcolm Forbes kept this collection in a Moorish palace in Tangier, overlooking the Mediterranean Sea, which, especially to somebody relatively, I mean, that just blew my mind. That not just the toy soldier collecting, but that he put it in a palace in Morroco overlooking the Mediterranean Sea. The thing about this book at that time and place was it really opened my eyes to a lot of the long history of our hobby, and it covered many of the new toy soldier makers that were active at the time it was published. And then around the same time, all the revelations that I got out of toy armies, and I kind of kept this book on permanent loan to myself from the library. I just kept checking it out again. I was gifted a really pretty battered old 54 millimeter Britain set of the Holocaust West Point Cadets in winter gray for Christmas. And that, kind of like potato chips, that was the beginning of a never-ending quest to find more and more metal reinforcements. And it's funny to me, on a related note, our 7-year-old grandson Gus, who might have inherited the collector gene, even though it might be Sesame Street figures or basketball player. He thinks he's going to be an NBA player someday. He's got, I don't know, 10 Winnie the Poohs in his bed. He likes to have a lot of things. Anyhow, one day he asked me, what were my first toy soldiers? So he takes a lot of pride in knowing exactly where to point them out on the shelf among the thousands of figures that are in my office. And you can see there's Minio winter gray in the front, then there's a set of the old Britons in winter gray that are in pretty good condition, and then my more battered ones. This is kind of my West Point shelf. So Gus comes and he, like every time, he's got to go to that spot, make sure I should move him sometime just to see what he does. So, thanks to the book Toy Armies, I learned that one of Malcolm Forbes' favorite toy soldier makers was Harold Pestana. who served as a geology professor until retiring from Colby College in Waterville, Maine. Due to my decades of collecting and magazine work, like I said, I've gotten to know personally and befriend a lot of toy soldier makers. But I'm no zillionaire like Malcolm Forbes, but Professor Pestana is one of my all-time favorite makers and people. So my presentation today is about how my wife Sally and I were lucky enough to get to know Harold Pestana and his daughter Catherine after I read about the whimsical world that the professor had conceived in an offbeat, self-published book, Bermudiana, a short military history of a mythical 19th century land. And Harold specially made numerous civilians and soldiers to help illustrate the book. And they, through a series of circumstances, they eventually became the centerpiece of my own collection. And one of the things that, of course, all of us take parts of history seriously, but a big part of the hobby to me is anachronisms and things that crack me up. And, people might come to my collection have no idea, but there's little jokes in there that always make me smile. And Bermudiana is a big part of this. And the biggest reason is Caribbean coral pink is the new British scarlet when it comes to the primary uniform color in this remarkable fairy tale army. And these figures, got one ahead of me. These are called the 6th Line Infantry, the Tuckertown Tirailleurs. So this is Harold at work at his study upstairs in his home. When Sally and I first visited the Pestana home to pick up the Bermudiana collection in August 2015, I was tickled pink to find a copy of Toy Armies autographed by Peter Johnson on a bookshelf in Harold's neat home study and painting room. Harold recalled first becoming interested in toy soldiers when he obtained Barclay dime stores as a 3rd grader. Many years later, he was conducting coral research at the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C., when he chanced upon the new book, Model Soldiers, A Collector's Guide by John G. Garrett. Probably everybody in this room has a copy of that book. At that time, Harold was amazed by the array of makers on the cover and figures that were covered in this book. So the book, Toy Armies, recounts how Harold's evolution as a maker began in 1971 when he acquired an old Britain's Royal Scots figure like this one from set 212 purely by happenstance during a visit to London. He just got the one figure. The following year, the inventive professor decided to try making a rubber mold to copy it. This triggered his production of a gloss painted parade of diverse types of conversions and recasts. Harold told the book's author, we're talking about Peter Johnson, I wanted to capture the style and the essence of the Britain's old lead figures, the feeling and charm and the nostalgia of the old toy soldiers, but not be limited to the casting and types produced by Britons.